The summer sun was barely up when my pickup rolled into the driveway of our family's lakefront cabin, a place that had been ours for decades. I was ready for a fresh start with my 10-year-old daughter, Lily, her arms full of sketchbooks and a worn-out stuffed rabbit. But before we could even unpack, a voice sliced through the morning calm like a whip. "You can't just move in here without approval." I turned to see a woman storming across my lawn, clipboard in hand, her navy blazer absurd in the July heat. She was in her 60s, with a haircut that screamed authority and eyes that sized up my cabin like it was a personal insult. "I'm Margaret Hensley, president of the Willow Lake Homeowners Association," she declared, brandishing her clipboard like a sword. "You needed to submit your move-in for review weeks ago. This is unacceptable." I set down a box, keeping my voice steady despite the heat rising in my chest. "I'm Nathan Brooks, and this is my family's property. My grandfather owned this land for over 40 years. I don't know what approval you're talking about." Margaret's lips pursed as she flipped through her papers with a flourish. "Mr. Brooks, things have changed. This is a regulated community now, with standards. Your dock's too long, your cabin's paint is non-compliant, and those weeds," she gestured at my grandmother's beloved wildflower garden, "are not on our approved plant list." Lily peeked out from behind me, clutching her rabbit. "Daddy, why is she so mad?" she whispered. I put a hand on her shoulder, forcing a smile. "Just a neighbor, sweetheart. Go check out the backyard." But Margaret wasn't done. "I need your move-in permits, compliance checklist, and landscaping plans. If you can't provide them, I'll have to call the authorities." I stared, incredulous. "For moving into my own home." Her smirk was venomous as she dialed her phone. "Police, I need officers at 456 Willow Drive. We have unauthorized occupants." Within 20 minutes, 2 patrol cars pulled up. Lily froze, her eyes wide as officers questioned us like we were squatters. Margaret stood smugly, rattling off violations, while Officer Daniels, a kind-eyed veteran, examined my deed. "Ma'am," he said to Margaret, "this man owns the property. Unless there's a crime, we're done here." Her face reddened, but she stormed off, clearly plotting her next move. As the officers left, Daniels leaned in. "Good luck, sir. You're the third she's targeted this month. A teacher and a nurse before you, both gone within weeks." The next morning, a thick envelope was wedged in my screen door. Willow Lake HOA welcome package. Inside was a 47-page rulebook that read like a dystopian novel. Grass couldn't exceed 2 inches. No wind chimes, no garden gnomes, no unapproved paint colors. I needed permission to hang a bird feeder. By noon, Margaret was back, taping orange violation notices across my property. $50 for unapproved flora, $75 for a non-regulation mailbox, $100 for unsanctioned landscaping. She even fined me for a hand-carved bench my grandfather built. "This is insane," I snapped. "These have been here for decades." She smiled coldly. "Standards evolve, Mr. Brooks. You have 48 hours to comply, or fines double." As she photographed my grandmother's flowers like they were evidence in a murder case, Lily watched from the porch, her rabbit dangling limply. "Are we in trouble, Daddy?" she asked. The question broke something in me. This was supposed to be our sanctuary, not a battlefield. I started noticing the neighbors' silence. Dog walkers avoided my gaze. A mom with a stroller crossed the street when I waved. Margaret was isolating us, turning us into pariahs. But then, an elderly man named Walter Quinn shuffled up my driveway with 2 mugs of chamomile tea. "Your grandfather was a fighter," he said, sitting on the bench. "Called the HOA land sharks in cheap suits. They offered him $1.5 million for this place in 2002. He refused." I nearly spilled my tea. "Why?" Walter's eyes gleamed. "That's the question, isn't it?" Margaret called an emergency HOA meeting that Thursday, and I could feel the room's hostility as I walked in. She stood at a projector, her slideshow branding my cabin a threat to property values. Photos of my dock and wildflowers were marked with red arrows, each a violation, with fines stacking up. "We must remove non-compliant structures within 30 days, she declared, proposing liens if I didn't comply. I stood, heart pounding. That dock? My grandfather built it in 1971. Those flowers? My grandmother planted them for her grandkids. This land is my family's legacy." Margaret cut me off. "Sentiment doesn't override rules. The motion passed 14-9. Lily's sniffles from the back row haunted me as we drove home. The next morning, Lily showed me a drawing. Two figures on a cloud, far above a tiny house, as if forced to flee. "If we lose this place, I won't have you anymore, will I?" she asked. I hugged her, vowing to fight. That night, I stared at my grandfather's oak chest, Walter's words echoing. Why refuse $1.5 million? I pried it open, revealing stacks of documents under lavender-scented tissue. At the bottom, a folder labeled HOA, Keep Safe, held a bombshell. A 2003 notarized letter stating our property was never part of the HOA, backed by deeds and maps proving our land predated their charter by decades. My grandfather had fought developers' legal threats and won, leaving me a legal arsenal. I called his old attorney, George Harper, who confirmed the document's validity. "Your grandfather knew they'd come for you," he said. "How big do you want to play this?" I thought of Lily's tears. As big as it gets. Margaret's next move was a final notice. Remove the dock in 24 hours or face $200 daily fines. I smiled, clutching the documents. She'd set her own trap. That evening's HOA meeting was packed, Margaret reveling in her planned execution. Her slideshow showed my cabin corrected in sterile beige, my dock erased. I walked in, folder in hand, and her smirk faltered. "Mrs. Hensley," I said, holding up the 2003 letter. "This proves my property is exempt from your HOA. Every fine, every notice, every threat you've made is illegal harassment." I laid out deeds, maps, and letters, each a nail in her coffin. The room buzzed as her face paled. "These could be forged," she stammered. "Verify them with the county." I shot back. I did. The crowd turned. Neighbors who'd nodded at her slideshow now whispered about their own fines. The board scrambled, one member bolting for the exit. "You've built a kingdom on lies," I told the room. To Margaret, I added, "Remove your notices and apologize within 24 hours, or you'll face consequences." The HOA ousted her that night, 11-1, with only her vote in her favor. But Margaret wasn't done. 3 days later, a tow truck roared up, hauling away my grandfather's fishing boat, which she'd reported as an environmental hazard. Lily, filming a nature vlog, caught it all, tears streaming as Margaret shouted from her porch, "This is what happens when you defy standards." Then she snapped, screaming, "That old man stole my future." I lost a $300,000 commission because he wouldn't sell. Neighbors filmed her meltdown, and Lily's video went viral, showing a tyrant unmasked. The HOA banned her from their grounds. Digging deeper, I found a 1987 easement in the chest. My family owned the private road every neighbor used to access their homes. For 38 years, they'd been trespassing. Margaret sued, claiming my dock violated environmental codes, but in court, Harper unveiled the easement. The judge ruled in my favor. I controlled the road. Margaret's lawsuit collapsed, her face a mask of horror as she realized her neighborhood depended on my mercy. I installed a steel gate at the road's entrance, painted green with a sign, "Brooks Family Road Private." Lily added a smaller one, "Grandpa's Road, Our Rules." Cars piled up, neighbors panicking. I sat on the dock, watching the sunset, just as sweet but heavy. Margaret had traumatized Lily, but 50 families relied on that road. Should I trap them to punish one woman? Lily's voice echoed. What about the others? They're not mean. Power was mine, but so was the choice, mercy or vengeance. What would you do?